Good afternoon or morning, class. I hope you are all doing well when you start watching this video. Today we're going to learn how viruses work and compare them with cells. So, our objectives today are be able to describe how a virus works, compare and contrast a virus with a cell, and then also discuss a little bit about coronavirus. But let's start with some questions, especially in this year of a pandemic. I really would be curious to hear your guys' answers to these questions. So if you'd like to, please leave a comment in our Google Classroom. If not, just please take a minute and think about some of these questions before we get started. So, what have you heard that is a virus? How do you think viruses work? How do we prevent the spread of a virus? And then anything else that comes to mind, please let me know. Alright, so I have a video that will be linked in the classroom as always. I like for you guys to just start by watching this before we start talking about our own own definitions and start taking notes. So please pause this video now and go watch this one. Alright, so let's do virus basics. As always, let's define what a virus is. It is a tiny infectious particle that can reproduce only by infecting a host cell. So I like to think of it as a pirate that steals another ship and then uses everything that's on the ship. They'll use the food they have, even the crew members. They will become the new captain. This uses the host cell's resources, organelles, and processes to multiply and spread. So once one virus gets inside a living cell, it will take over all the organelles, how everything reproduces, so that it can make more viruses. And we will learn exactly those details in just a moment. Also, I think it's important to talk about what a cell is so that we can compare and contrast. So a cell is a small membrane-bound organism, which is the smallest unit of life. A lot of you have told me that you've learned about cells before, about different organelles, and exactly what a cell is made of. So I'm not going to go into too much detail right now, but we can compare and contrast in a little bit. So let's learn about what a virus looks like. So there's three main parts to every virus. We have a nucleic acid, which is our information carrier. We learned about nucleic acids when we did our macromolecules. These could be DNA or RNA. A lot of our viruses, because they are simple, do not have DNA, mainly have RNA, but some do use some DNA as well. They have what is called a capsid. This capsid is a protective protein shell. So this provides support and shape for the information within the virus. This is almost like a wall or a barrier. We could think of this maybe like a house. And inside the house we have all of our things that we want to protect. And on the outside we have our concrete walls and doors and everything. And it also has a nice shape to it. We can see down here that viruses tend to take a few different kinds of shapes. They can look more like a circle, and this inside is all the information. It can look like a cylinder, or I'm not sure what to call this, maybe an insect or a bug. So the last thing is an envelope. So that's the very outside part. Not all viruses have this, but this is used as a way to bind to the host. So they have these little pokey things, almost like Velcro. Velcro is used on some different jackets or even on some shoes, mainly for younger kids, to be really easy to attach things and then tear them off. But this can attach to the outside of a cell, and then the virus can push the nucleic acid it has into the cell. This shape of a virus would lend itself very well as the legs could attach to the outside of the cell, and then all this information can get pushed down this central tube to go inside the virus, or sorry, inside the cell. So, how does a virus spread? So, we have a nice little diagram here, and we'll just go through each step. So we have 5 steps for a virus to take over a cell. The first one is attachment. That means this virus needs to attach to the outside of this membrane. This is our cell membrane, which is our barrier to the cell. So we need to attach, and a virus finds a host and then binds to the outside. We call it a host, the cell that is getting taken advantage of, is getting used, is the host cell. Then the second part is entry. There's a couple different ways this can happen, but the virus pushes its DNA or RNA into the cell, or the entire virus comes in as well. So when we talk about this kind of structure, this would push all the DNA through this little hole, whereas this one might drill its way all the way into a cell, and this one would probably look much like our picture where it finds a way and pushes its way into the cell. So next we have replication. So then the virus DNA or RNA is copied by the cell. So this DNA will be pushed into the nucleus of the cell where it will get replicated, just like any other DNA or RNA would. And so now we have lots of different copies of the genome of the DNA or RNA, the information for our virus, instead of the information for our cell. So what we can do next is make an assembly where we will use different organelles to create a membrane around each different DNA or RNA strand. And this is where new viruses are made. So they're ready to go out the door. This would be like us getting all our jackets and backpacks and waiting at the front door just to leave class. And then the last one is release. So this can happen in a couple different ways, but what happens is they somehow break the cell membrane. Sometimes this happens just because there are so many new viruses that the cell can just no longer hold all of it inside and bursts open. And then we have a lot of new viruses off to go and spread into other host cells. So we have a good little Venn diagram to kind of show how to compare and contrast our viruses versus our bacteria. Bacteria are a type of cell. So when we look at our virus, they tend to be pretty small. They need a living organism to reproduce. They attack the genetic material of a host cell, and they live in a sense they are not living. We say that cells are living because they can reproduce. Our viruses can't reproduce on their own. They need to use some other cell's ability to reproduce. So we say that viruses are not living. When we look at bacteria, they're 10 to 100 times larger. They can reproduce from non-living organisms. So they are alive. They can attack the body all at once. So when we talk about different bacteria, sometimes when we drink water that's dirty, we can get a bacteria in that makes us sick, or there's lots of different kinds. And then they can carry the cells needed for multiplication. So bacteria will come in and make us sick and replicate on their own, while our viruses come in and take our DNA, our cells that are already inside us. But they both have the ability to make us sick. So now I want you guys to try to maybe do your own Venn diagram. I think it's a good exercise to see if you can understand the difference between these. So I've created this nice table. This is our virus and our cells, and then some different descriptions of each. So, for example, the structure is made of a protein capsid and nucleic acid for a virus, and the structure for a cell is made of a lipid membrane, DNA, and organelles. So, for example, we would put the first bullet of the virus under here. Instead of it saying smaller, it would say made of protein capsid and nucleic acid. And this one would say what our cells are made of. We can use one that's very small, write that in there. We could write in the middle column for the both that they both use nucleic acids. We can write that viruses don't grow, but cells do. Viruses don't use energy, and this is how cells use energy, and then they both are able to respond to their environment. So here is how I did it using those different ones. I made my own Venn diagram, and just to kind of break down what it would look like, cells versus viruses. So at the very end of this, we don't have time right now to play this whole video, but I would love for you guys to watch this, and it talks specifically about COVID-19 and what happens once it comes into our bodies and how it affects our bodies. So this is a very pertinent, a very timely video, I think, and very important lesson to learn about. So I look forward to hearing some of your comments and what you guys think and think about viruses and what you've learned so far. And if you have any questions, as always, please let me know.